Hello, my name is Daniel Underwood. Welcome to my garden here in Essex in the southeast of the UK. So today I'm going to be making a video showing you some seeds that you can sow during the month of April. We shall start with broad beans. So I have three varieties here, otherwise known as faba beans or fava beans. And I have three varieties. I have Masterpiece Green Long Pod, reliable and popular. Demonica, probably the earliest spring sown variety. And we have Scorpio, late cropping, so extends the season. So I will let you have a look at those. So you could sow these right now. Now, I made a video a month or so ago about how to grow broad beans. So check that one out if you'd like to know more about this subject. Beetroot, I have two varieties here. I have Boltardi, which is a globe-shaped variety. Generally recommended if you're going to sow early that you sow Boltardi because it is resistant to bolting. And this variety here, Cylindra, which is a cylindrical shape. So I like to grow these initially in cell trays, modules, and then later transplant. However, I have direct sowed some underneath some fleece in the garden. Under this very fleece here. So I'll link that video down below and you can have a look at how I did that if that interests you. Now I also sowed a different variety of beetroot under there, a white albino variety, so that's quite interesting. So all under here, I'm expecting them to germinate hopefully within 2 to 3 weeks. Radishes, great fun to grow and very tasty, really lovely and very easy to grow. So you could straight sow those into the ground now. Lots of different varieties. This is variety French Breakfast 3. You can get sort of elongated ones such as these, or you can get more round globe shaped ones. Have a look into radishes. You can also eat the top and they can be ready within around 6 weeks to eat. So very interesting and good fun to grow. Chard. Now chard is a very interesting one because if you sow chard too early and it gets exposed to frosts, it can be more likely to bolt. So that's one reason why I like to grow it on in module trays and then later transplant out, so hopefully it'll avoid a frost early in its life and thus hopefully reduce the chance of it bolting. So you can sow those now. Spinach. Now spinach is a particularly great one to sow at this time of year because it can germinate at relatively low temperatures. So once again, I like to grow these on in cell trays, modules, and then later transplant out. You could straight sow these now. In fact, I am considering growing a line of these underneath the fleece that I showed you earlier. I might plant them tomorrow. Brussels sprouts. This is variety Evesham Special, so I'm going to be sowing some of those and look forward to eating those later in the year. Watermelons. Now I have variety here Crimson Sweet. So I've grown watermelons with success here in the UK before. Now I'll link some videos down below on melons should that subject interest you. Now very important to give these a nice warm temperature in which to germinate and indeed to grow on. So 20 degrees C, there or thereabouts, is what you want to be aiming for at least. That's about 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So one of the best ways to achieve that is to grow them on, germinate them on a south-facing windowsill. That way, higher temperature, more likely to get a good germination rate. Cucumbers, great fun. Now cucumbers are not hardy, okay, so like the melons you want to be germinating these inside, in my opinion anyway, at this time of year. That way you're more likely to get a higher germination rate, and also I have noticed that cucurbits, which includes things like squash, courgettes, marrows, cucumbers, seem to be quite attracted to mice and they can quite easily eat your seeds whilst they're still in the compost. That can be frustrating. So to avoid this, I like to germinate them inside. Now, got varieties here. This is Market More. It's a prickly cucumber, very tasty. You can grow it on the floor, you know, let it sort of romp all over the show if you want low maintenance, or you can grow it up strings or canes, whatever. This variety here, very intriguing. This is Early Fortune cucumber. First introduced by the Jerome B. Rice Seed Company in 1910. So a bit of history there. And this variety here, this is from Bulgaria. This is, I'm probably not pronouncing it right, Gurgana cucumber. And very quick growing, so there we are. Once again, you want to be aiming for about 20 degrees C for germination, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and get a good germination rate and hopefully look forward to some nice cucumbers later in the year. Kale, this is variety Westland autumn, very nice tasting kale. Other varieties, Nero di Toscana is one, as is red Russian kale. Many different types, so you can plant kale now as well. I like to, you probably worked out that the majority of things I grow, I like to grow on initially in cell trays and then later transplant out. This is red Russian kale. It can also be used as a salad kale. I've overwintered this and the warmer temperatures have really brought it on into growth. This here is Westland autumn kale. Once again, overwintered that and it's come into some nice growth. I have some more over here, and this is with some cabbages. This cabbage is variety Offinum 2, flower of spring, like a greyhound cabbage. Komatsuna, Japanese green. So this is one of my favourites to grow. It's fully frost resistant and it also has some resistance to drought, which can be a very beneficial thing if you're growing it in a place such as this. Here in Essex, UK, we're USDA zone 8B, and we can also get some of the warmest and longest summers by UK standards, so we can also get drought with that as well. So certainly a beneficial quality of this Komatsuna, and nice tasting, and I can recommend that you sow this one now. Now here I have some dwarf beans. These are bush varieties, so I have Speedy here, the quickest bean to mature, and I have Tender Green here, established long season variety. Now, like the cucumbers and the watermelons, these are not hardy, so what I would probably do is germinate these inside on a south-facing windowsill. That way you get a higher chance of germination, and of course these would be vulnerable to frosts. Now they may germinate out here and they may even survive, but we're still getting frosts at night, cold temperatures, so a little bit of care is required. Now you could chance it and sow these in modules and plant them outside in a greenhouse or a polytunnel. You could give it a go, but for higher germination rate and better protection of crop, more reliability, I would suggest growing them inside. And of course when you bring them out later, you've got to be careful, the same as you would have to with the watermelons and the cucumbers, because once again these are not hardy. So I'll show you something I do to help protect my tender plants at this time of year from frost. So you can see that I've got this polystyrene container, which is very helpful because at night I put the cover on like that. So what it does is it stops them getting leggy. If I kept them inside, the chance of these tomato plants in particular going leggy would be quite high. So I've got them here, and I have had frosts down to about -2 degrees C, and they have survived. Now I did have a loss because one night I forgot to put the lid on, but that's just one of those things. So this could be very beneficial if you got your cucumbers, watermelons or dwarf beans to the size in which they needed to be transplanted into bigger pots such as this and moved outside. You could consider something like this to protect them. So you could consider something like this. This is one of these garden storage containers. So I helped a friend change a fence post, and he gave me this in return, which was very kind. So you can see these are chili plants. These are variety Basque. Now these have been out here in frosts. I believe I sowed these originally around December, January time. I brought them on inside and then brought them out here when they were bigger. And you can see they're doing well. Once again, these have had some frosts on them. I put the lid on, and that has helped to protect them. I mean, one really could, go all the way of putting maybe some polystyrene or bubble wrap on this to help keep out the frost even more. But this is working. Lettuce. So this is variety Lola Rossa. So this is a nice lettuce, red colour, and I would sow that in cell trays and then transplant out at a later date. You could direct sow this, but that's an increased risk of slug attacks in my opinion. So cell trays is how I like to initially grow on my lettuce. This is lettuce all the year round, sown on the 7th of March. This is some more mature all the year round lettuce, which I overwintered. This is some lettuce, little gem cos, which I sown on the 17th of February. Now this is an interesting one for you. This is Scorsoneera. Scorsoneera. I don't know how you say this. It's like a root vegetable, something a little bit different. So I'm going to be having a go at this. Now I'm probably going to have a go at straight sowing it and also putting it in modules. Now I don't know how this will react to root disturbance, for example transplanting like you would something like beetroot, but I'm going to grow them both ways. So maybe I'll put some under the fleece you saw earlier, and also put some in some cell trays as well. So Scorsoneera, look that one up if you fancy something that looks a little bit different. Parsley. Now nice herb, Great in pots, attractive leaves. Exciting stuff. You can see some buckets here. So the one on the left, it contains multi-purpose compost and sharp sand, and it's about 3/4 multi-purpose compost, with the other quarter being the sharp sand. This helps with drainage and makes it less likely for a seedling to suffer from damping off, a fungal condition caused by low light levels and high moisture levels. You can see, for example, this lettuce here all the year round, 1 per cell tray I've sown, and you can see this one has the sharp sand in, whereas this one is multi-purpose compost. Now in this case, it hasn't made too much difference to a germination rate or indeed the plant health at this time, but if one is sowing earlier in the season, good drainage is very, very important. And in fact, it is at any time of the season, but particularly early in the season. Now if you're living in a cooler part of the UK than here, certainly having some well-draining growing medium could be very beneficial indeed, and using sharp sand is quite a nice cheap way of achieving this. Here I have multi-purpose compost, and that's nicely in the bucket, nothing else added to that. Once again, you can see here beetroot variety Boltardy. Same again here, sown on the same day, the 11th of March, and this has the sharp sand added, and this one hasn't. Once again, hasn't made too much difference at this time. So you can see there are multiple seedlings coming up here. When I sown beetroot, I probably put about 3 or 4 seeds in each cell. Now, one seed can actually germinate more than one beetroot plant, which is quite exciting, but you can see how they've come up and they're looking quite healthy. So I have some spring onions here. These are variety White Lisbon. So you can see those there. Once again, multiple seeds in each cell tray, and I will transplant these out. These are ready to transplant out now, probably. And I planted these on the 17th of February. You could plant some of them now as well. You could straight sow them or do them indeed as I have here. This is just the multi-purpose compost, no sharp sand added to this mix. Peas, you can plant these now. So these are variety Jessie Sugar Snap Pea, planted on the 18th of February in this cell tray. I germinated these out here in the polytunnel. Now you can see there are about 3 per module there, and I have indeed transplanted some peas already into the gardens. Variety Oscar and also Tall Climbing Pea Champion of England. You can see them if you check out the video that I'll link below that I uploaded the other day. Cabbage, lots of different varieties you could sow at this time of year. This is variety Offerham 2 Flower of Spring. 1 per cell I've planted there, and I planted those on the 13th of March. Leeks, these are variety Musselburgh. Lion 2 Prize Taker is also a good variety to sow, and you can see these are modular sown. You could straight sow leeks or plant them the traditional way by initially bringing them on, maybe dibbing a hole and then putting a single leek plant about this size into the hole, put some water in, cover it over and let it grow that way. But I like to grow them in modules like this, once again for basically time saving, and leeks are a great one to grow, fully hardy, tasty and very nutritious. Carrots, so I have James Scarlet Intermediate here and Paris Market 5. I believe I sown these about a month ago. I also put some underneath the fleece you saw earlier, so you can plant carrots at this time of year as well. Now, with regards to what you sow at this time of year, you do have to be careful. It is easy to get into a false sense of security, okay? Because you get some nice days, but frosts can still happen. It could technically even snow, so one has to be aware of that. So everything I've got planted out here on this little desk here, if you want to call it that, is fully hardy. Of course, the tomato plants behind me and the peppers aren't, but you've seen how I'm protecting those. But these are growing without protection here, and these will survive. Some of the seedlings I had here when we had them low temperatures of about -8, -10 degrees C a few weeks ago. So there we are. Now, so once again, don't be too sort of hasty, if you will, and by waiting a few weeks, particularly if you live in a cooler part of the UK or indeed a cooler country in general, maybe a part of Canada or something like that. You know, you don't need to rush ahead. Take your time and relax into it. But you've seen what I've done. I've shown you how I'm doing it, so hopefully you can learn from that. Now I'm going to be planting some of these runner beans, variety Scarlet Emperor, into cell trays, 1 per cell. Now, I would not recommend people sow these at this time of year, okay, unless they fancy having a go at something that is a little bit risky, okay. So I'm probably going to be putting them into, I'll just show you, this tray here, 1 per cell. And I'm probably going to leave them out here and just see what they do. So it could be interesting. Here in Essex we can get very warm weather in April into May. Sometimes our last frost is indeed early to mid-May, and you can help to capitalise that, if you capitalise on that if you wish, if you will, with regards to some early sowings. But of course that may be different where you are, so make sure you just think about what you're going to do to avoid wasted time, wasted seed, etc. But if one likes to have a go at something different, you can always challenge yourself gardening, always have a go at new things, and you never know, it might work out. But you've always got to bear in your mind that it might not, and you might lose certain things if you sow them at a time that's not particularly suitable for your local area. So lots of fun to be had, and I hope you enjoyed that video. So there we are. If you like my work, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, comments, questions, whatever's down below. I'm going to be making some exotic videos soon, and also some potato planting, and also a potato planting video soon. So if you would like to be notified of that, please feel free to subscribe. Thank you very much for viewing, and enjoy your weekend.